Should I take a survivorship option on my state pension plan? So this question obviously comes up every single year for all retirees. A lot of times they are in the impression that if they don't take the survivorship option, it could benefit them more because they're not going to take that reduction. And if they live long enough, it's going to benefit them more because they'll get more out of the system. Now, I don't have a crystal ball, and I'm sure you don't either. So that's a really big risk to take, especially if you have a spouse. So if you're single, that's the only option you get. You only have the single life option. If you have a spouse though that's relying on that income, and if you passing away, the income stop would devastate your household picture, then that's really when you want to start looking into the survivorship options. So for most people, I'd say about 95% of the time, it's going to be a good idea. Now, when wouldn't it be a good idea? A couple of times I've seen this come up. So in the event that you have a spouse that is financially well off without your pension. So in other words, if your pension stopped in retirement, they would be okay. They'd have enough money coming in from their retirement portfolios, from their own pension, from their Social Security, that they could cover all of the necessary bills and still have a little bit of money left over that they wouldn't really rely on your pension. If that's the case, then that might be one reason to not take the survivorship option because your spouse is already set. Another reason why you would want to say no to the survivorship option is if you have sufficient permanent life insurance in place. Now, why do I say permanent? Because you want to make sure the policy is not going to lapse on you. You don't want to go into retirement being 15 years into a 20-year term policy and just like, oh, I got life insurance, I'm fine. You live more than 5 years retirement, that policy lapses. Now you don't renew coverage. So when you pass away in that case, your pension stops, there's no life insurance left to pay out. Now, the ultimate truth life insurance is the only one that matters, is the one that's enforced on the day that you pass away. Permanent insurance ensures that policy is going to be there when you pass away, as long as you make the premium payments. You don't have to worry about it going away. So that's one reason for using permanent insurance in that case. Now, this only really works out if you purchase permanent insurance earlier in your career. So if you've had a policy for a long time now where the premiums aren't very much and you have enough of a death benefit, those are cases where you may be able to opt out depending on how the numbers shake out. But if you're trying to buy these things in your 50s or 60s and trying to see if you can get a better deal this way than taking the cut that the TRS is going to take for electing your survivorship option, more than likely it's not going to work out. I already did a whole video on this, and you can feel free to check it out. I'll link it down below. But where the numbers have shown and just things I've done in person, it just really doesn't work out. It's just too expensive at that time to really make it work. Now, another situation that comes up occasionally that we might want to question, should we take the survivorship option or not, is in events where our spouse is much older than us. So if our spouse is, 15, 20 years or more older than we are, in that case, it may not make sense to put them on as a survivor and take a cut to our pension, because more likely you're going to outlive them. However, we realize that the way that TRS calculates the reduction on your survivorship options is based on the age difference between you and your spouse. So the older my spouse is than me, the less of reduction I take. The younger my spouse is than me, the bigger a reduction I'll take, because they're going to theoretically they're maybe collecting it longer than that. So if you have a spouse that's 15, 20 years older than you, you're looking at maybe a 5% reduction instead of something like a 20 or 25% reduction for someone that's the same age as you. So while you may opt to not take it, it's not going to cost a whole lot to add them on just in case. Now, the last example I have for you is sometimes people come to us and they are really trying to scramble for retirement, whether by choice or by force, medical issues, things like that. And they feel like they just can't afford to take a survivorship option. They need every single penny that they're going to get from their pension, Social Security. They don't have a lot in savings and they really need it to work out. Now, that's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, yeah, you want to have the highest pension to help cover your bills, but understand that if something happens to you, that pension is gone. Now your spouse is left in a much bigger hole than you are initially. So in those situations, my encouragement is, if at all possible, is there anything we can do in the financial picture or the expenses to reduce it to make it work? Is someone able to work part-time? Can we, cut anything out of the budget to help those numbers work better? And maybe downsizing your house, moving to a cheaper place to rent, things like that. But if at all possible, that's what I'm going to look at first. But if all that magic doesn't really work out, and the only thing you have to rely on is option one, the full retirement payout, then I guess that's the gamble or chance you're going to have to take on it. And you just cross your fingers and hope that you live a long, healthy retirement so that pension can keep coming in. So there's just a few situations that I've seen that it may make sense to opt out of the survivorship program. However, for most people, I'd say about 95% of you guys out there, taking a survivorship option is going to be the best thing to do in the long run for both you and your spouse. Remember that if your spouse predeceases you, you do step up to option 1 again, meaning that you get your full benefit back. So it's not necessarily a permanent reduction if if your spouse were to predecease you. If you have any questions on this, feel free to drop them in the comments below. If you want to set up a time to speak about this further, about your survivorship options, retirement in general, we do consulting by the hour. That's also linked in the description below. I'll catch you guys next week. Remember that your future depends on what you do today.